So I have my box together. I've put all my slabs together. I've scored and slipped all of them, and I've added a coil on all that I can reach except the top. Now, one of the things you might notice about my box is that I cut two of my shapes too short. I missed the little corner here when I rolled the slab. I didn't have enough clay. It's clay, so you can get away with some fixes. So what I've got here is some soft clay. There's some slip in there already from when I slipped and scored it. And I'm just going to press some clay in here, and shh, no one will know that I did this. I've got a red rib now. I can kind of smooth that edge, or if I'm using a texture, I can roll my texture and no one's going to know. Now, I mentioned that there is a way we will know if you didn't clean up your seams originally, and that is if you let this dry really fast. So I now have wet clay joined to leather hard clay. And as you hopefully know, wet clay and dry clay, the difference is some of the water has come out, right? So it's dried over time, and as that water comes out, that clay shrinks just a little bit. Now, if I take this box with my leather hard slab and my wet corners and my wet seams, and I just sit it out on the shelf and I'm done with it, and I leave it for the next week or weekend, and I just let it dry in the air, what's going to happen is the part that has already shrunk a lot will shrink a bit, and the parts that haven't shrunk at all will shrink a lot. And as they shrink, they're going to pull away from each other, and the whole thing is going to start to crack. I'm going to have the corners are going to crack, there's going to be gaps there, because as the clay shrinks, it moves away from the easiest point to move away from. So it moves away from the seams, this corner will pull apart, and I'll have this box in pieces when I come back. So when I'm done with this today, I need to keep this covered in the damp room and let it dry nice and slow for at least as long as it took me to make this. So I started it yesterday, finished it today. It needs to dry for at least 2 more days, nice and slow. Now, I'm actually not quite done, because as lovely as this box that I can't do anything with is, I would like to make this have a lid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a lid, and I'm going to show you a couple of ways that you can cut the lid. I'm going to kind of mix them into one piece here. I'm going to take a knife, and I'm basically going to cut a lid off of the top. But instead of coming straight across, I'm going to angle my knife down a little bit on the one side. And I'm actually going to do half of the lid with a bevel and half without, so you can see both ways. You pick one. Do either a bevel or not. So as I come across, I'm going to cut down at an angle with my knife. I'm using a fettling knife. A paring knife also works well, and a X-Acto knife will work just fine. So I'm coming down and in. Now, one of the things you notice I did is I've got a little triangle here, and that's a key. And I've cut a key into this because that will allow me to more easily fit this lid in place when I'm done with it. And I'll show you that in just a moment. Now, on this side, I'm just going to come straight across because I want to show you a way to do a gallery as well. And then, of course, one thing I want to do is make sure that I line up here about the right spot. Now, I've cut this off. A couple things you're going to notice. One is I don't have absolutely perfect edges. That's how it cuts off. That's fine. I'm going to come through, and I can use my finger. I can use a fettling knife, or I could use a loop tool to cut away some of that extra clay. I could also use a wet chamois if I wanted to, but I'm going to clean that kind of stuff up. Another thing you notice is that I've got one seam here that's not as clean as the other one, and that's because that was that last seam to get put together. So now that I have access to it, I'm going to get in there with a coil, and I'm going to make that seam stronger. And you can see that I've tipped my box on its side from how I was building it, so my top is on my side now. So I'm not going to bore you with cleaning up that edge, but I will clean that edge up. Another thing you notice is that I'm never going to accidentally try to put my lid on this way, right? My bevel, or my keys, excuse me, show me exactly where those pieces need to go, and they make it really easy for anybody using the box to not get confused. They're not going to have trouble figuring out where that goes. I've got a little gap here, probably happened because as I was rolling the slab, there's a little air pocket. And that'll be fine. It's not a big deal. I can make it look nicer, and I can just kind of squeeze it together. Now, the other thing I want to show you, over here on the 2 sides that are facing you right now, The fact that I've cut this angle down, that it leans down a little bit, is going to be what holds that in place. So as I go to tip this box, that lid's not going to want to tip off. But if I had cut the box even all the way across, I would want something in there so that this lid didn't just slide right off the top. And I'm going to show you what that something is. That something is a gallery. Now I happened to be planning for this, and so I had made some, just some scrap slabs here. They're as long as my whole box. I'm going to have to trim them down a little bit, which I'll do right now. Just cut a little bit of that clay off. And then what I'm going to do is, I didn't cut quite enough clay off. I'm going to score and slip and attach these pieces like against that edge. I'm going to cut one for this side as well. And you can measure, you can get a ruler out and be all exact about it, but I'm being a little bit messy. Of course, I have an easy way to bevel my corners so that they match up, and I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to bevel 2 of these corners, and that'll be how these match up over here on that side. Okay, to score and slip, I'm going to scratch up this edge, scratch up this edge here, add a little bit of slip to one side, make sure my bevel's pointing the right way, and then I'm going to press these together. Now I want this, this gallery piece that I've added to hang down just a little bit, and of course what I'll do the same over on this side. I want this gallery piece to hang down a little bit because when I go to put this in place, it's going to slide into the box, and that gallery keeps it from sliding, from the lid from sliding off, if that's the only thing holding it in place. Now, just like before, I've got a seam here that is only being held together with, pressure. And so it's a good idea, if you can do it, to get some extra clay in that seam. Now, this time I'm going to want a really small coil. Oops. I don't usually roll them on paper. I've got the paper here so it looks better, but I wouldn't recommend probably working on paper. Canvas would be a good thing to roll your slabs on, or just the table. So these real small slabs, so I've got a little bit of dry clay because I've been sitting for a while. It's a good idea if you're working and you're going to be working for a while, get a little wet towel, and you can just wipe that off on the wet towel each time it gets dry clay on it. So I'm using my rubber tip to get in here and clean up that edge because I don't want a lot of extra clay there, right? If I have a lot of extra clay there, it's not going to fit on here anymore. But I do want to have extra clay pressed into that seam, just a tiny bit, just that very small coil, and that'll make that a little bit stronger. Where's my clay? There it is. We have several different types of ribs, of rubber tips. Sorry, we have a smaller one, but I can't find it right now. It's under the pile here. But the larger one will work. There are a bunch of carving kinds of tools that could work as well if you're trying. All you're trying to do is make this edge look nice. Some pressure to get it in there is helpful, and then you can always cut away some of the extra clay if there's too much there as well. I can also get a coil of clay back behind here. You can't see this as well, but I can get it kind of under here to press it into place. I've done this fairly simply, and what I will spend some time on is cleaning up these edges here with a loop tool with my finger, these edges as well, to make sure everything fits nicely. But that's a quick view of how you would spend some more time and get your lid on there nicely. Now remember, when you're done with this, you're going to wrap it up and let it dry nice and slowly for a couple of days. Thanks.